Whenever it comes to learning something new, beginners will inevitably make a lot of mistakes, and playing Flesh and Blood is no exception. If you've been struggling to get in any wins at your local armory, then perhaps you've been making mistakes that may seem small, but have been costing you entire games. And so today I want to go over the 3 biggest mistakes that I see new players making and how to fix them. The first one is one that I have committed far more than I'd like to admit. Imagine it. Your opponent is on the play, meaning that you get to block and just draw a fresh hand after. You draw your first 4, and as your opponent lays down their very first attack, you look at your hand and, oh, I kind of want to keep this hand. Maybe I just take the damage? Don't take the damage. You are drawing up to a full hand at the end of the first turn. For the love of God, just block. Flesh and Blood is a game of incremental advantage. The consequences of blocking are that it leaves you with less cards to attack with on your turn. The very first turn of the game is the only exception to this, and so you should absolutely leverage that in your favor and not take any unnecessary damage. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you just go full Unga Bunga mode and throw cards down randomly. Take a look at your hand and figure out what cards you want to keep most, and then block with those last. If you're lucky, you'll be able to keep the most powerful card in your hand, but if you're up against a hero like 5, for example, who's just going to keep sending more and more attacks, then just block with everything. It is painful to block with powerful cards, but in the grand scheme of things, it is far better to not take unnecessary damage when blocking is essentially free. Also, while this mistake is bad enough in Classic Constructed, it is massive in Blitz. You have 15 to 21 life in this format. You can't afford to take extra damage. Not in this economy. The second mistake that I see new players making is not blocking on hit effects with their armor. Now, this seems to happen for 2 reasons. The first is that new players just sometimes forget that they have equipment to block with. There's a lot to pay attention to in Flesh and Blood, and so it's only natural that you're going to occasionally forget certain things. Just try to keep mindful of your armor, and as you get more familiar with the game, you'll be better able to keep track of it all. But the second reason I see people not blocking on hits with their armor is the real problem, and it's that you're all using it to block raw damage. When someone is attacking you for 7, that is quite a bit of damage, so it's only natural that you're going to want to block as much as possible. And if you want to keep cards in hand, you might think to throw your armor in front of that 7 damage, but that is a huge mistake. And this is because you're going to need that armor to stop attacks that have on-hit effects, many of which have either dominate or have what are known as breakpoints. Take Herald of Erudition and Snatch, for example. The Herald attacks for 5 with Dominate, meaning only 1 card in hand can block it. But with 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, you can safely block this and prevent the draw effect. Snatch works in a similar way. While it doesn't have Dominate, it attacks for 4, which is 1 damage more than the 3 that most cards block for. So unless you have a defense reaction, you'd have to give up 2 cards just to block the on-hit with Snatch, which is a very bad exchange for you. But 1 card and an Iron Rock Gauntlet will do the job perfectly. So unless the attack will literally kill you, you should save your armor for when you most need it. The final mistake that I see new players making is the most basic, but the most important one, and it's simply not practicing enough. Flesh and Blood is ultimately a game of skill, and if you're only playing a few games once every week or 2, you can't expect to learn quickly. Now, obviously, it can be difficult to get together with people in order to practice in person, but that's where the wonderful fan-made online client Talishar comes in. While playing online is a cheap substitute for the real thing, getting in a few extra games on Talishar in a week can greatly increase your abilities as a player. Whether you're still figuring out your own deck or you're trying to understand whatever it is the hell Kano's doing over there, getting in that little bit of practice can make a world of difference. Also, if this is your first time hearing about Talishar, I did do a video on it back when it was known as Flesh and Blood Online, so if you're interested in that, I will link the video in the description below. And while you're down there, while there are still other reasons that you could be losing Flesh and Blood games, not blocking on the first turn, not using your armor to stop on hits, and simply not practicing enough are the 3 biggest mistakes that I see new players making. And so hopefully this video served to help you so you can start winning more games. And who knows, maybe you're just a little bit of effort away from taking down your locals.
Huge thank you to all of my supporters. If you'd like to join the Chad Army, you can either become a channel member or join my Patreon with the link in the description. And if it's cards you want, you can use my affiliate link to Red Riot Games to help support me as well.